Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with our Transbrake and Transbrake Bump feature found within our Motec programming. Now this is going to be something I have available in a GPRP package. You'll also find it available in the GPR package. Other Motec packages may also support this feature, but you'll have to go and check in your particular package. This is going to be used for an automatic transmission in a drag race scenario where you have your two bulbs that you have to trigger in order to get the pro tree to actually drop and then be able to start your run down the drag strip. So we want to go ahead and roll into the first bulb, and then to be able to get into the second bulb, we want to have our vehicle go forward in a controlled manner. Well, we want to be on the trans brake so that the transmission is essentially locked up and not allowing the vehicle to roll or move. And then we use a bump feature, allowing the vehicle to bump in very slowly in a controlled manner into the second bulb so that we don't deep stage or red light ourselves. So this is pretty simple and straightforward to implement. The programming strategy here is very easy to do and easy to implement here with the Motec. We're gonna have to go over some wiring details here in order to make this successfully implemented, and we'll go over the control strategy. It's very simple. Let's jump in here and take a look at where we can do our actual programming. We're going to move from our tuning area here and jump down into motorsports. And under motorsports, we're going to move across here under our staging window. Now under the staging here, we find a driver section and we find a transmission section. So the first thing we need to understand is how we're wiring everything on our vehicle. We're going to have a trans brake switch to engage the trans brake on our automatic transmission. And then we're going to have a bump button that's going to be found, on my case, on a steering wheel. That's going to use to provide that bump feature to be able to bring ourselves into the second bulb. We're also going to have a solid state relay, and that's going to be what controls the actual trans brake on the automatic transmission. So let's jump in here and take a look at my schematic. Is going to go over the components and some of the wiring details here, and then we'll jump into our window and start to assign everything in our control, and then we'll do a test real quick and see how everything's going to work. So first things first, in our schematic here, we have a Motec M150, I have a battery, I have a steering wheel, and the steering wheel has two buttons. One of the buttons is going to be used to actuate the bump feature. We have a shifter assembly, that's for the automatic transmission, and that's going to have a button that's going to actuate the trans brake control. Then we also find we have a solid state relay, and that's what's used for the Motec to control the actual trans brake feature. Now the relay here is a solid state relay, and I typically use Holley part number 15620NOS. This is a very good solid state relay. It's relatively inexpensive, and it works very, very well. It can handle up to about 40 amps continuous, if I recall correctly. And you can also pulse width modulate it if you want, which we don't have the ability to do that with the Motec in this firmware package, but you can pulse width modulate it up to 1000 hertz. So it's a very versatile solid state relay. Now that solid state relay again is going to be controlling the trans brake feature on the automatic transmission. As long as your automatic transmission has a trans brake feature, everything here I'm showing in the schematic will work in terms of the wiring details. So looking a little bit closer here, the first thing we're going to find is that our shifter handle is going to have a red button on it. That button is going to be wired one leg to battery or chassis ground. The other leg of that switch is going to be tied into our Motec. So we're going to be grounding the ECU pin when we want to engage the trans brake control. Then we're going to find we have an output control wire that's going to the pin number 2 on our Holley solid state relay. And we'll find pin number 1 is going to a battery power. There should be a fusible link between the battery and the solid state relay for reference. I don't have that pictured here, but do want to mention that. And then the position 3 on the Holley solid state relay, that's what's going to the actual transmission, and it's sending a 12 volt out to the trans brake control. You'll find that's typically how we engage the trans brake control, is sending a 12 volt to the trans brake feature. Now, the solid state relay here is controlled in a low side output. And that's important to know because we need to assign that here when we're going into our transmission brake output resource here. So we have to assign an output, and we have to note that it's going to be low side out from the Motec. Now, again, the solid state relay can be controlled in an on-off fashion, or it can be controlled in a pulse width modulated fashion. In this particular example, with this control routine that we have here, we are not able to do any pulse width modulating of the actual solenoid. It's going to be an on or an off control, so 0 or 100% duty cycle. All right, now that we understand the components, how things are wired here, one last thing is going to be our steering wheel. So the steering wheel is going to have a button on the left side, which you'll be grabbing the steering wheel. So you have steering wheel held in your left hand. You have your button there on the steering wheel that you can actuate with your left thumb. And then you have your other hand on the actual shifter assembly with your finger on that red button to engage the Transbrake. We're going to find the button on the steering wheel. One leg's going to, again, chassis or battery ground. The other leg's wired into the Motec. We'll be grounding that pin when we push the button, and that's going to be allowing the bump feature to engage. So each time we hit the button, it's going to bump the car forward. So it's very important, just the orientation of how everything wired here, and you can visualize how this would all set up in the...
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.